But yeah, we're super excited about Christina Gwira coming in. We've had a lot of questions about Divi, and this rant, as she's put it, that's what it's all about. Woes and wins. We're going to be honest with you. So the pros and cons of using Divi, especially for in terms of SEO and how that works. Just a little bit about Christina before she joins us. I'm paraphrasing, but she's self-taught, and by 2016 had accidentally built my web design agency, Noya Designs. We only have so much time today, but I'd love to learn how that happened by accident. And Christina is also a part of Barack Obama's Young Leaders of the Americas initiative, being one of the first Canadians to be selected to participate in the program, as well as working for multinational magazines, global nonprofits, all sorts of exciting things. Jackie of all trades. Christina, I'm going to let you take it from here. We're excited to hear about your talk. I love Divi, but sometimes it sucks.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that intro, Kenzie. I appreciate it. And thank you everyone for being here. And today is not going to be like, I don't have like the special cool PowerPoint presentation for you. I'm just going to share my screen. And the presentation I do have is more so to just make sure that this rant doesn't turn into like a full-blown, hatred session of Divi. So as the title suggests, I love Divi, but sometimes it sucks. This is my ode to my love and hate relationship with the WordPress theme. So as Kenzie already said, my name is Christina. I'm actually in Brampton, Ontario, so quite a ways from Nova Scotia. And like I mentioned, this is not going to be a presentation. It is mostly going to be a rant. And so there's not a set list of things I'm going to cover, but we are going to definitely dig deeper into Divi. And we're also going to take a look at some of the ways that you can optimize what you've been given, which is the Divi framework for search engine optimization. So please, the floor is open. You are able to share your own stories, share your own woes. Oversharing is welcome. So let the bloodbath begin. So that quote is actually from Legally Blonde, which is like one of my favorite movies of all time. Anyway, so let's get started into my story with Divi. As a budding web designer, you come across a great number of WordPress themes. You deal with Astra sometimes, even though when I first started out in web design, Astra hadn't been created yet. But there's a whole slew of themes that you can actually purchase from places like ThemeForest, or you can purchase from Template Monster or Envato, etc. And for me, I literally used to use whatever theme a client brought my way. That was the theme we worked with. And that really made things difficult because every time I got a new client, I had to learn a new theme. I had to figure out how it worked, what made it good, what made it bad. And that took a lot of time out of my creation process because it was very, very hard for me to keep on top of, number one, managing clients, learning this new platform, and then actually delivering to clients what they wanted with their WordPress website. So what had happened was, over time, I kept on seeing, and on top of that, I should add, as a disclaimer, I was also never paying for these themes. So it's either the client brought it to me or I was using cracked versions of those themes for clients, which is a big no-no. You never want to do that. That's like very bad, not just in the fact that you're stealing, but also that leaves the door open for your clients to have their websites hacked, and it's just wrong. But as a young designer, I really didn't know any better. And so that's what I was doing. So at the time, yes, cracked themes. At the time, I kept on seeing this theme repeated over and over and over again. It was the Divi theme. So every time I went onto my cracking websites, somewhere in Russia, somewhere in Ukraine, they would always have like this update for the Divi theme. And I always be like, why is this theme surfacing so many times? Why are they always updating this theme? And so I downloaded it and I tried it out for a client. And this was the first website I made on Divi. And this is actually still alive. So if you go to this website, I have cleaned it up. I did actually use the real version of Divi on the site now. But this was the very first website I made on Divi. And if you notice, it has like the exact same color theme for Divi, the exact same font. I use the exact same slider, what have you. The main reason that I stuck with Divi was actually because of this website. I found that at the time when I was building websites, more and more people wanted to have websites that were mobile responsive. It was the buzzword of the time. People wanted to work on desktop, they wanted to work on tablet, and they wanted it to work on mobile. And what I was finding was that when I was building websites with WP Bakery, which is another WordPress, I wouldn't say it's a theme, but it's more so of a WordPress page builder, I was finding it very, very difficult to get granular with the way I was working with mobile responsiveness. So I was not really liking what it was looking like. And clients also were like, well, it's not really mobile responsive. Like, it's not really good. But I found after building this website that it functioned very well on desktop. It functioned amazingly on mobile, and it worked just as well on tablet. So I remembered that and I noticed it. What I ended up doing was I was finding that as more and more people were asking for mobile responsive websites, I was always going back to using Divi. And over the course of time, Divi became the only WordPress theme that I started using for my clients. So it didn't matter if they were building a directory, it didn't matter if they were building a blog, well, asterisks on that because I actually don't use Divi to build blogs. If they were building a directory or a website for a restaurant or even a podcasting website, I would always use Divi and find ways to make it work. So my latest website, and this is live right now, I launched it last week. This is my very favorite service that majority of people come to me for, and that is your very standard one-page WordPress website. The reason I love it is because number one, I can now use Divi in a way that I can get super, super granular in mobile responsiveness. I love how I can really go in and customize things, whether it's with CSS or with the default builder. And I really feel that if we go back to like my old website and my new website, there's been some growth, there's been some growth. So this is definitely one of the things I really loved about working with Divi. I've been able to grow with the theme and be able to change it, use it, manage it, massage it for my own self. So let's talk about some of the pros. The main pro that I have for Divi is how deep I can get in making stuff mobile responsive. So I like to be able to sometimes create completely different layouts when it comes to working with the tab phone. So if you noticed on the ACBN Canada website, if you look at it on desktop, for example, you notice that there's a headline, there is a blurb of text, and then there's two buttons. However, when you look at it on mobile, I've actually completely removed that blurb because the main thing I want people to do is click one of those two call to actions. This is one of my favorite pros about Divi, and I think that it does it very, very well. Another pro that I have with the theme is the fact that I am able to customize the theme deeper. As an example, I can customize WooCommerce product pages. I can customize WooCommerce shop layout. I can customize blog posts. And they're constantly coming up with different third-party plugins, different third-party child themes that I can now use to make Divi better, which is also a con, by the way. But it's nice to have. One of my favorite third-party plugins to use alongside Divi is actually called Divi Supreme. And on top of the 40 or so plugins Divi automatically comes with, Divi Supreme also adds another 40 on top, which I find gives a good baseline in terms of what I need to do for my clients. That brings me to my third point, that I can literally build any type of website except a blog with Divi. And because of that, I love how I'm able to, again, further customize these different new custom post types that may come when I'm adding different things. As an example, on Valentine's Day, I'll be launching my very first SEO course. I decided to use the Learn Dash plugin, which is a premium plugin to deliver my course. With the Divi theme builder, I'm able to decide what each and every single page template that comes with LearnDash, I'm able to actually go in and design it exactly the way I want to. So for the course page, it can look different from the actual course layout page, which can look different from the shopping cart. And it all matches to match my brand and my theme for my website. That's another very big pro that I have when it comes to Divi. The theme builder allows you to literally make layouts, import and export them, not just within your WordPress website, but I can actually export a layout from one website, put it into another Divi website, and have the exact same thing. No need for additional plugins, no need to back up and restore a website. And that has really saved me a whole great bunch of time by being able to just copy and paste literally modules, copy and paste, or import and export layouts in a very easy to use way. Now, let's talk about the cons. So my biggest problem with Divi, it is so slow. As compared to other themes out there, I find Divi to be extremely slow, not just for users who are opening their website or opening the websites I build or anybody else builds on their laptops or their phones, but also as I'm building websites. Sometimes it can take like 5 to 10 seconds for a page to load on Divi. And when you're trying to work really fast or you've got a deadline or something like that, it makes it very, very difficult for you to be able to maneuver around the platform if it's taking a long time to load or things aren't moving or showing up in place. That is by far the biggest grapple that I have with Divi. It takes forever to load, not just for the end user, but also for the person building the website. The second thing I have against Divi is the fact that some of the smaller issues, such as maybe having a full width slider, or rather a full screen slider, sometimes having alt tags, which is something I'm going to talk about soon because it relates to SEO. Some of these things make it very annoying to work with the platform. So since its inception, I would say since I want to say Divi 3.0, there haven't been any new modules added to Divi. And because of that, this brings us back to one of the pros I mentioned, having to rely on third-party themes. Now, as you already may know, the faster your website runs, the better it is, not just for end users, but also for you as a owner of a website. And also, page speed also is a big factor when it comes to search engine optimization. You want to make sure that your pages are loading smoothly, they're loading quickly so people can get to the information they need to get to. However, if you are constantly buying and installing third-party themes to get your page to look just right, it can sort of slow down your website. And that is something that I've personally noticed when I build clients' websites. At this point in time, I try to keep the number of plugins on client websites to a maximum of 5, but sometimes I like to, push myself and do maybe 2 plugins here or there. And for me, those 2 things, even though they're not the biggest, the list is not substantive in terms of it's not a long list. I think that these 2 points, the fact that Divi is very, very slow, it's very, very heavy, and the fact that you may have to rely on third-party plugins to kind of get it to look the way you want to, I think they are big enough issues for me to have this rant. So let's talk about SEO. When it comes to Divi and SEO, again, we're going to bring that point up about how because it is a very bulky solution, it can maybe have a slight impact on your page load speed, which can, again, impact the way your pages or the way your website works when it comes to search engine optimization. But apart from that, that is the extent to where I think Divi is not good when it comes to SEO. To be honest with you, for the most part, when I am doing search engine optimization, especially technical SEO for client websites, I don't use the built-in SEO features that Divi provides. I feel that they're very small, they're not really exhaustive, they don't really help. At this time, I'm currently using Yoast when I am working on SEO for clients. However, I would definitely like to ask my own question to you guys when we get to the Q&A section and find out what plugin, if you are using one, that you're using for search engine optimization. The only reason I use Yoast is because I've used it for over 5 years, and I've been able to rank several websites very, very well with Yoast. And so I know the plugin well, I'm able to work with it, etc. But in all honesty, I think that using Divi as a WordPress theme doesn't have a negative impact on your SEO, except for when it comes to page load times and page speed. So I would like to open the floor to anyone if they'd like to unmute yourself or use a comment box to kind of find out what your thoughts are thus far on everything I've shared. Do you like Divi? Do you not like Divi? Do you agree with my pros? Do you agree with my cons? Floor is open.
And I think you can all unmute yourselves if that's possible. I don't think I control that. Oh, we got something in the chat, Christina.
Awesome. So Jason, I see your comment here where you basically said that you used Yoast, but now you prefer Rank Math. Could you just maybe give us a little bit of background as to why you prefer Rank Math to Yoast? I would love to hear your thoughts because I have kept on hearing about Rank Math. Anybody else? So again, the floor is wide open. Yes, I got to rant, but I'd also like to hear from some of you, even if it's just like, yes, you're doing great, or this sucks, or I hate Divi. Floor is wide open.
Yeah, I personally not use Divi.
Yay, discussion. I don't know who spoke first, but
oh yeah, go ahead.
I'll let Kenzie. No, I was just going to say we usually recommend Yoast to people, to clients that are doing WordPress sites, mainly because I find the usability of it is it's a little easier for people to if they're not into the guts of it. But I've also found that when it comes to like SEOing a site, I kind of dislike that term because it's never like, okay, there's one thing to go through and get all your titles and descriptions done. People get really hung up on getting a really good score on Yoast, and that's just a guideline. Like that's not, if you did everything the Yoast asked you to do and it was low competition, then yes, you could rank for it. If it was high competition, you may not even scratch the third page. So then it becomes a different story. Now you'd still need something like that to get that base in, so you could be at a spot. So I've heard, and I haven't used Rank Math myself, Jason. I've heard some good things about it. I heard there was a vulnerability issue with it in 2020, but I'm assuming it wouldn't last for very long. But something just to keep in mind. But I have heard good things about it, what it can do, and I believe it can do a lot more than what Yoast can do. I find what like you said, the page speed thing is a very interesting issue because most pages on the website fail page speed test, and I think it's something like 70%. Google put out those numbers, but they're going to include Core Web Vitals, which you can find in Google Search Console, which part of it is longest contentful paint, which is a page speed score. And they're going to be including those scores in the algorithm. They're going to try to integrate them in May. So that makes it interesting because Google's trying to find metrics that their algorithm can measure usability. From what I understand, they're not going to penalize so much as label. So much like if you had an insecure site, you could get a label that says it's not a fast loading site. So that label could decrease click-through rate. But if everyone else is failing it and you're just one of the ones that has a label on it as well and a result of 10, then somebody's just going to pick the better one. That's my initial thoughts on it. We've definitely made a push on our clientele to get their Core Web Vital scores stronger. We're setting a goal of April. And then one thing, and I found it interesting when you were talking about Divi Supreme, and I'm sorry, I'm co-opting the conversation because I'm really interested in this as well. I'll let other people talk, but you said there's like 40 additional plugins and you did talk about this as well. Is there any, like, one thing we've been doing with clients that use WordPress is doing plugin review, because we found those plugins tend to add an element of JavaScript. And that JavaScript, the way it's loaded, can give issues for page speed. So, if you've maintained, anybody's maintained a website for a while knows how plugins can kind of we can't remember why this is in. Or if you're working with a big team, you're like, somebody added this, but we're not even sure why. So, you're everyone's, and I appreciate it. It's really hard to just remove a plugin, but trying to balance that. What's been, so when you do work with Divi Supreme, not knowing the platform as well as you, when it installs those 40, how many would you said you try to keep things down to 5, which I think is a great number. I can't see that being too much of an issue. When you push things, how do you have a system in place where you go back like every quarter and check to see if the plugins are still relevant to what you're doing, or do you have a system in place for that?
So to be honest with you, most of the clients who come our way, they're service providers. So by definition, their websites can run with fewer plugins. However, it's more so our maintenance clients who come to us and they've had their website built like God knows who, and we have to come in and clean up after them. So for those clients on a monthly basis, we do go in and see if we can, number one, find better plugins that are more efficient to replace the ones that are already there. And we do go in, and this is something that as soon as a client comes on board, I remember there was one client who had a WooCommerce website, and she had, I think, 25 plugins installed. And after a year, we got that number down. On WooCommerce, we got that number down to about 16. So we removed 5 plugins. And we found that we were able to kind of find additional plugins that maybe bundled some of the features that several plugins were doing. I think she had one multi-currency plugin, and I think she had 3 of them installed. And we were just like, why do you have 3 multilingual plugins installed? So we just picked the best one, got rid of the other 2. And sometimes there's like old plugins and stuff like that. So yes, we do. For our monthly maintenance clients, we do go in and try and find ways to optimize the number of plugins that they use, or completely switch out plugins to ones that are coded better, because that JavaScript can definitely become a very, very major issue. And it can be something that causes issues, not just for them, but also for their end users. So we definitely do an audit every single month to see if a specific plugin is still relevant. And if it's not relevant, we remove it. Or if we can find a plugin that can do the work of 2 to 3 plugins, we go with that one instead. I'm just going to check in the chat because there are a couple of comments in here. So Jason says, totally agree on Divi performance. Even a black page has 1 MB of CSS to load. How have you had success with, I love that, with plugins like WP Ticket or Asset Cleanup? I love Asset Cleanup. So that's one of the plugins that's in my toolkit. I love using it. Again, going back to WooCommerce, Asset Cleanup was very, very helpful in when I needed to optimize a Divi WooCommerce beautiful, beautiful website that I built, but there's a lot of products and a lot of product photos. So the site just out of the gate was super duper slow. I love Asset Cleanup, and it's something that I utilize a lot. In addition to Asset Cleanup, I also like using Auto Optimize, but I might get rid of that. So for my toolkit, I typically have a Kismet for spam, Asset Cleanup, Auto Optimize, depending on the website, Divi Toolkit, Divi Supreme, and then Divi Supreme needs you to have Divi Supreme Lite installed as well. So those are the 5 plugins that I have installed on almost every single website. And I don't know, like I'll put this question to the floor, but I actually don't like having a Google Analytics plugin on WordPress website. So what I typically do is I just integrate the UA key directly into Divi's backend. And that's how I get my Google Analytics. But I don't like having, again, plugins that aren't necessary or aren't needed. If I can still log into, Google Analytics and check out what's going on my site, I would rather do that. WP Rocket, I have not utilized yet, but I have heard very good things about it. I do have a colleague who utilizes that a lot for her clients. So I personally use Total Asset Cleanup, and I have heard good things about Divi and WP Rocket. Yeah, so that's it for the chat. So what I wanted to also share with you guys was my on-site SEO checklist. And the reason I wanted to share this with you was, number one, some of the principles here are very, very simple, very, very basic, and can be used with Divi and Yoast or Yoast. I've never actually heard it called Yoast before, so that's interesting. I'm going to alternate between those two. So if you haven't already, you can definitely go to christinagwira.com/SEO checklist, and you can download the very simple checklist. It's literally only 6 things you can start doing on your Divi website to start getting your feet a little bit wet when it comes to technical SEO. And like I said, Divi and SEO, there really isn't, that in my professional opinion and from what I've done for my clients, there isn't a negative side to using Divi as well as trying to do technical as well as offsite SEO with your website. It's all about having those foundational principles and applying them. For me, in my professional opinion, in my personal experience, I think page speed and load times are definitely something to be aware of when it comes to Divi. And as such, that is where my disdain for the framework comes in, simply because I don't understand why it's so hard for me to work and maneuver around the platform. But then also, I also don't believe that it should be as difficult as it is to optimize a website to just load fast. I feel that that's something that plugin authors, as well as theme developers looking at you, Elegant Themes, should take into consideration as they are building out their theme. So without further ado, the floor is open for Q&A. So I am available to answer literally any question when it comes to Divi. Turn the camera on or open your mic or use the chat, but this is my time. So thank you so much for having me. Thank you for being active participants. I loved how the chat was on fire. That was so, so good. Thank you, I appreciate it. But yes, the floor is open for any questions that you may have surrounding Divi.
And just before we dive into anything else, big thanks, Christina. Really appreciate you coming in today.
No worries, I'm glad to be here.
And if you check in the chat too, you're right, it has been on fire, which I do love to see. You can follow Christina on LinkedIn and Twitter there, as well as her website. So check the chat room and click those.
So Twitter is definitely where I'm the most active, but LinkedIn, you know, is if you want to be more professional with it. But yeah, floor is open for any questions that anyone may have regarding Divi.
I got another question for you, but I feel like I'm using all your time. Divi not for blogs. Why, and how do you kind of segment that? I use Aveda myself. I think that's Elegant Themes. And I'd love to turn it off for blog posts because really it's just straightforward content. And I never even thought about it. I'm like, yes, we don't need that for that. So kind of explain your thought process behind not using Divi for blogs and how straightforward it is to just shut it off.
Shutting it off is not a problem. I would say more so if you want to have, so here's how I look at it. This is my thought process. If you want to have a blog for having a blog's sake, like this website is a blog, I'm not adding my courses, I'm not adding an online store, I'm not adding all the frills. I think Divi is a very, very poor theme for blogs, mostly because the way it handles blog layouts right out of the gate is absolutely disgusting. It's so bad, and you need to use the theme builder to get it to look a certain way. And I feel that it also doesn't have enough modules to support having a full-fledged blog. However, Elegant Themes does have a newspaper/magazine/blog theme called Extra. I would recommend utilizing Extra if you want to have a blog and you really want to go deep into blogging, even going as far as getting into affiliate marketing, banner ads, etc. I would recommend, instead of using Divi, to use Divi's sister called Extra. They're both from Elegant Themes. They both utilize the Divi theme builder. They both utilize the Divi page builder. That makes more sense if you're trying to run a niche blog specifically, but also running a website that is a blog first and foremost. So that's why I would not recommend utilizing Divi for blogging. You are welcome. You are so welcome. Thank you for being a part of this. Well, if there are no more questions, I want to thank you all for spending your brunch time with me. As Kenzie so nicely did mention, my links are in the chat, but I've also left them up here as well. I also do have a YouTube channel where the recording for all of my past meetups are held. So if you do want to go through and probably learn how to build different things on Divi, you can find that all on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Christina Gwira. And again, I want to thank you, Michael and Kenzie and everybody here for having me today. It was a pleasure to be here. I love the energy, and I would love to tune in to SEO Brunch later on in the year. So thank you so much for having me.